So I'm happy to be sitting down with head coach of Lake Forest High School, David Hone. Coach Hone took over the head coaching role in 2023 and over 2 seasons has reached the top of the Illinois State Pyramid by winning the 2024 state championship. Coach Hone, thanks again for taking the time to sit down and speak to the Illinois lacrosse community.
Well, I appreciate the time, Mike, and really what you do and everybody at IBLA for what you do in the state to grow the game, teach the game. I mean, that's the foundation for all of us here, right? Without IBLA, we wouldn't have the pipeline and really enjoyment for the kids and the awareness of the game. You know, I've been here, and we'll talk about it, for about 15 years, and we've gone from 0 to 15 years, you know, 15 years to, right, I don't know how many kids are in IBLA, but thank you for everything on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you saying that. And yeah, I mean, congrats on this past year, winning the state championship. I mean, when you took over the role, did you think that was something that was, in the cards, or, how did you feel about that approaching the job?
Yeah, it was definitely the card. That was always the goal. When I will talk about my youth coaching experience, the goal way back when is to win state. Big, hairy, audacious goals, but I'm a big goal-based person, career-wise, professionally, and in coaching. So without a doubt, in 2023 and the years before that, for the Lake Forest Varsity Scouts, that was the goal. And we made a lot of progress, as you know, the prior years.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my predecessor, Coach Teagart, laid the groundwork, and we were close, and thankfully things came together last year.
Yeah.
But in this season too, that is the goal.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, not a lot of people know that you have a rich lacrosse background playing at Villanova, and would love to hear your progression through playing and then coaching, and kind of hear about your story.
Sure. I might be like some 4th or 5th graders out there now. I grew up in northern New Jersey, kind of a budding hotbed back then. Grew up in Westfield, New Jersey, which is a very good program in New Jersey, a public high school. But lacrosse came to me in my 5th grade. It was late 70s, and around that time, Westfield Public High Schools formed a varsity team, and with that they started a youth program, which was very small. But really, the reason why I started is neighbors of ours. I think they're twin brothers. They're about 5 or so years ago. They were on the first Westfield High School lacrosse team, and I thought the world of them.
Yeah.
And they later went on to play at both of them at Harvard.
Oh, wow.
Lacrosse. But when I was in 5th grade, they gave me a hand-me-down lacrosse stick. And they also gave my older brother by 2 years.
Wooden?
Yes, we had wooden, but it was metal shaft. So I got the short shaft, so therefore I played biddy. My older brother had that 28-pound metal shaft, and he played deep hole. He went on to play at Fairfield.
Yeah.
But it's really that. It just landed in my hands, thankfully, by them, and then it just started through youth.
Yeah.
And then Westfield High School, and I dropped the baseball mitt. I love baseball, but lacrosse to me was the best of everything.
Yeah.
So I played all the way through, high school.
Yeah.
And then got recruited, luckily, at Villanova, and I played through there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So then, how did you make your way to Chicago after that?
Sure. I was East Coaster. I was living in Darien, Connecticut, a hotbed for youth, and the Darien Blue Wave High School. And working in Manhattan at that point for well over 20 years, managing money, institutional mutual fund assets. And I had a great opportunity out here for William Blair to do the same thing, but in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I have Midwest roots. I have family from Columbus and South Bend. I knew Midwest, but I always loved Chicago and the Midwest way. And I kind of took a bet, and a very educated bet. My wife knew, she's from Long Island, she knew really nothing. But we just said, let's give it a shot. 2 of my sons were really young, so we just took the bet, and here I am 15 years later. It's been great. It's been great.
That's awesome. Actually, before we started, we were kind of chit-chatting about, coaching youth and so forth. I would assume that's like when you first got into it, coaching your boys and so forth.
Yeah, so it really was Gavin, who's my youngest, who's now a senior in college. My oldest, Justin, he played actually, he attended Lake Forest Academy, he played for a couple years, but he did other sports. So it was like, he did cross country, squash, and other things. So he never really was embedded big time in lacrosse, and he was older too.
Yeah.
And so it was really Gavin who, when we moved in 2011 to Lake Forest, he just said, let's, I'll try out.
Yeah.
And back then you didn't have tryouts, but he thought he had to try out, and I said, let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
And then knowing, I think the year before, back to Coach Teagart, my predecessor, Lake Forest High School varsity lacrosse, they helped start LFLA, Lake Forest Lacrosse Association. So they were brand new.
Right.
And nobody really knew a lot about lacrosse. So at the same time, when Gavin started to play, I volunteered to coach that year.
Yeah.
Right? And it's different than, coaching youth lacrosse in Darien, where you have a lot of people and it's institutional, they know lacrosse. In Lake Forest back then, they really did need help.
Right. And I would assume during those early years, I now have boys also, and they're playing lacrosse. It's a fun time to, see them grow and share some of their experiences and being out in the field with them and so forth. I'm sure those were, some cherishable times, especially when you're young with kids and so forth.
Oh, without a doubt. To see them, it's not just the game and learning the game and winning and losing, which we did a lot. It's just the friendships. They're Gavin's good friends now, or his teammates back in 2012, 13. That are playing now or not playing now. And it's just to see the smiles on their faces, learning. And it's not just what happens on the field for 48 minutes.
Right.
It's the trips.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was great memories.
Yeah.
Great memories.
So one of the things, when you start coaching with youth players and then you actually move your way up to maybe high school level players and so forth, do you feel like that actually helped kind of mold you into the way that you coach now?
I think a big part of it, I was kind of a constant, when I stepped up into the role a couple of years ago, that, they knew me, a lot of them knew me, so versus this unfamiliar person and face and tone and approach to the game. So I think it helped that they were familiar with me, for better or worse, and I think I applied a lot of what I used to apply in youth, because there are similarities. Now the game has changed over the last 15 years, so as a coach you do have to adapt. So in the last 2 years especially, I've had to adapt, not just because of older kids, but also how the game is played at the high school level.
Yeah, and actually, so it's funny you mentioned that, because I'm curious on, your ability to adapt. And, for example, if I went to a high school practice, okay, what would that look like in terms of your utilization of maybe the assistant coaches? I would say Lake Forest famously utilized a zone defense, so things like that, how much of it is it, are you just saying, no, this is what our team's doing, or having this collaboration with your coaches? Yeah,
collaboration, yes. I have two very good coaches, strong foundation, what we do at varsity. That's Coach Nate Kane and then Coach Justin Smith. So we kind of assign responsibilities which are constant through the short season. It's really 3 months, as you well know. So Coach Kane will primarily focus on defense. Now I will help on defense, but help that. Coach Smith now will work on the specialist positions, whether it's face-off, right, and goalie. He played goalie in his prior career. And then with me, I'll primarily focus on the offense. So that helps. Right. So we will. An hour and a half practice, which we generally do, we will kind of emphasize that. Now sometimes we're always together. Right. But when we split D versus offense, typically Kane will go with defense and I'll take the offense.
Right.
Before practice, almost always, and I'm a bit, it's a pillar of what we do is lacrosse intelligence. I consume and teach with a lot of film. So pretty much before every practice, we are going through film. Whether it takes 15 or 20 minutes, whether it's a future opponent or prior game, what did we do wrong, what did we do well? We will also adapt that into a practice. Right? So a practice is variable. Now there's things that we always will do every practice. Conditioning's one thing. Now conditioning, what I've learned is the best way to condition the sport of lacrosse is to actually play. Now we'll do some running during the season, but we're trying to keep this fast-paced running 6v6 or what have you.
Yeah.
That's a constant. And then a lot of it, as like I said, it's a 90-day sprint, and we're just trying to figure out where we need to get better, and we will change that up, every practice.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
that's the best part, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, okay, so 2023, you took over the position, and then obviously, having a ton of success. You and I talked on the phone the other day. You were watching game film. So a couple of years ago, were you watching game film on on a Tuesday at 1:00 in the afternoon, or has that changed?
No, yes, I was, maybe not on a Tuesday afternoon, but yeah, I do. I was watching it at some point during the week. I was actually watching it today during lunch.
Yeah.
So yes, and you learn a lot about the game.
Right.
The
right.
game is changing so quickly.
Yeah.
Right. So and also weekends. I watch. My wife doesn't really understand how I can watch and deal with lacrosse that much, but I do watch the next level.
Yeah.
ESPN Plus, and you learn a lot there. I do think you should always be watching.
Yeah.
Right, the high school level and college, and I learn a lot about ourselves and where we need to improve on, but also what we can do, whether it's Illinois lacrosse and also college.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Absolutely.
And also, I am a lacrosse fan junkie.
Yeah.
I do love the sport.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even I recently, I know everybody now is looking at how they can add in new concepts of the game, but then also like modify the way that you coach and so forth. I had an interview with Coach Corrigan, and I was like, I would never think the Notre Dame coach would allow guys to shoot behind the back or between their legs and stuff like that. How much do you feel like you have to sometimes just, hey, like, let's let the kids play versus, hey, you can't do that. Like, I grew up from my coaches, everything's overhand, no behind the backs, like, you gotta do it all fundamentally. How do you feel like you've kind of maybe like opened your eyes up to some of that stuff?
Yeah, I'm actually open to it. It's funny you mentioned that. So whether it's third grade, LFLA coaching, there are constants, and one is, you always dodge with gusto.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but then you should always be doing that. But as the player progresses, maybe up to, in this case, Lake Forest Varsity High School, I want you to play with moxie.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe that's the East Coast flair. Maybe not Syracuse lacrosse,
Yeah.
but I'm generally okay with it. Now, you have to be at that aptitude to do behind the backs and things like that.
Yeah.
We have a phrase in Lake Forest Varsity Lacrosse, B2B can mean, boy, that's bad. Right? So you should not be doing it if you can't do it, because that could be an unforced turnover.
Yeah.
But I do encourage experimentation if over time you can learn to do that and effectively. But if you're just doing it just because of, fashion over function, then we have a problem. But I do encourage that kind of,
Going back to youth lacrosse, obviously, as you alluded to, you are part of like the beginning of LFLA starting. I would confidently say that it is one of the biggest and best youth programs in Illinois. How much do you think about the connection the high school team has with the youth program and the success of both of them working together? And would love to kind of hear your thoughts on how you guys maybe work together and collaborate on some stuff.
Sure, great. I mean, really, yes, we won the state championship last year, but everybody won that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's been years and decade plus
Yeah.
of a lot of work.
Yeah.
Stinking and stinking less. But that was really a victory for all in the community, and really the foundation for us was the Lake Forest Lacrosse Association of the Youth.
Yeah.
That's where this is all starts, and really, I'm fortunate to have that in the youth pipeline. And I think it is unique. It's a not-for-profit.
Yeah.
This is its 15th year, and we've grown to about a little under 300 players now.
Mm-hmm.
And our Learn to Lax program,
Yeah.
which is I think about 90 now, which are like the 5 and 6 year olds,
Yeah.
90 kids. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So we are so fortunate to have that, and there's so much. It's not just the coaches, and we have a lot of great volunteer coaches, but also the parents. Volunteer parents help out. We have a board for the not-for-profit,
Mm-hmm.
and we get better and better every year. Yes, we're growing, and it's just been, in 15 years just to watch it,
Yeah.
it's been great.
Yeah.
And I think it is a unique thing that we have.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've seen Lake Forest travel to other towns to play a high school game, and the youth families go.
Yes. Yes, which, yeah, and that was always my dream when I moved here from Darien, Connecticut. When Darien, to this day, the youth just looked up, to the Darien high schoolers.
Yeah,
And now we're kind of getting to that point. But also the high schoolers here at Lake Forest Varsity, they have to give back, and they should give back, and they do like to give back to the LFLA youth, whether it's coaching sometimes. They work with the Learn to Laxers, the little 5 and 6 year olds.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And so they look up to the high school kids, but the high school kids should give back, and they do give back. So that's that continuous cradle all the way up, no pun intended, to the high school.
Right.
And it's been great to watch it grow.
Yeah, I would love the opportunity for you to maybe talk about the Learn to Lax for Jack program that you guys have, and talk a little bit about that too.
Sure, it's the heart and soul what we do, especially at the youth level. And maybe you've seen it, or people watching this, when the varsity scouts play, we have number 4 flags out there, and that's and we also have a player that wears number 4, which is a great testimony to that player and a tribute to Jack Adams, who tragically passed, I think, about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
He was a varsity high school scout for us, I think about 8 years or so. So he tragically passed. In his honor, we set up with Learn to Lax just like a foundation to really grow in his name, and to carry his legacy going forward, whether it's the Learn to Lax program, but also at the high school, because we are tied very tightly. So with that, we take number 4 seriously and think about Jack and how hard he played. He was a hard-nosed player and quiet, which we love as a scout. But that's why we have number 4, and that's what he means so much to us this day.
Yeah.
And what that Learn to Lax for Jack Adams means down at the 5-year-old, 6-year-old level.
Yeah, that's awesome. Obviously honoring him. I had the opportunity to coach him, as you mentioned, was an unbelievable player. I mean, ground ball guy, run through a wall, and then very, very coachable. All the things that you're kind of talking about, like the culture in Lake Forest, having it be, essentially, in Illinois, we kind of always hear about, football and basketball. I know in Lake Forest, it's lacrosse, and it seems like you guys have such a positive culture with as you alluded to, the high school guys helping with the youth, everybody connecting each other through the foundation. It's awesome to see. So very excited about what you guys are doing.
We still have a strong basketball and football culture. And I love football. Football, they're hard-nosed, in hockey, like ground balls, and basketball, I love basketball. But we are slowly turning to more of a lacrosse culture. You're right. We're not there yet. Well, I have a little East Coast bias.
Yeah. So, one of the things that typically happens is guys recently, graduate college, they come back into town, they start getting into coaching high school. Words of wisdom that maybe you can give some young coaches or even some experienced coaches in the state of Illinois that you feel like would be helpful for them?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think a lot of it is to set goals. I like to set big, audacious goals, like win state, whether it's 3rd grade LFLA, and in 3 years we want to state, but really stretch goals set, right? And really measure yourself. Yeah. And this, and it's the little steps and little micro wins that you get to that goal. Yeah. Right. As a youth coach, 3rd, 4th grade, I set the goal in 8th grade. We wanted to win state. Right, and although we lost in the championship, but I think the players, when they're winning little micros, beating whatever team in 5th grade and getting better and better, that really helps. So goal setting, right? Big ones and then small ones, whether it's let's get better at dodge, pass, hockey assists, matching feet on defense, clearing at a 60% clip or 40%. Really using empirically using the numbers, how you measure yourself, goals, achievement or failure, but also big goals. The other one is communication, which is hard. I mean, when I was younger, trying to, coach, especially youth, but also it's a challenge with high schoolers. How do you communicate? When you communicate tone, right? Yeah. When to raise your voice, but also when you're educating, right? Talk with them through things. So that's an art, and that takes a long time, and I'm still learning how to do that. Yeah. But it's just the goals, and also try to be a presence as much as possible, which is tough at youth. sometimes, a parent may coach their son for a year or two, then have to move on.
Right.
And that's hard, but if you can be, a constant with yours, in this case, son, for years and years, that's a really good advantage.
Right.
Right? And then also how to communicate.
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah. Now, okay, so you went from, I would assume within the community, you are friends or social with some of the parents of some of the players that you're coaching. And at a certain point of the year, I'm sure you probably, draw a line and say, all right, I'm coach now, all right? And I know when I first moved to Illinois, I coached at Glenbrook South for 2 years. And one of the big things that I ran into is how to properly communicate maybe with the parents. The kids, I was able to, do the goal setting, then it's you get to speak to the athletic director, and then the parents are a whole nother level and so forth. How do you feel maybe yourself, how to navigate some of that with the parents, and maybe even share with maybe some of the younger coaches strategies and so forth?
Yeah, well, I'd have to say, and I don't know if this would surprise you, my friends and, players' parents I'm good friends with, they've been great. I've been friends with them for a decade plus.
Yeah.
Now, I have new, player parents because they fold into the varsity team. But, obviously winning a bit does help a little bit, but I think you have to be very frank and open with them, tell them about your goals up front for the season.
Yeah.
And also, I am always available, particularly, and this is key, whether you have any questions about the sport and what we're trying to do, to a point.
Yeah.
Right? But I think, and sometimes, certain things do creep in, but I think you just have to set this is high school now, you do have to set the boundaries, and they've been great. And maybe another one, maybe I'm lucky or I've been around a little bit versus just dropping in.
Right.
But it is, and also you have to stress to them, as you mentioned, you have to juggle a lot. Watching film, dealing with administration, right? Little thing, and then scheduling.
Yeah.
It's a 90-day sprint in the spring. You're trying to coach games, practice, and you really have to stress that this is our time as a team and coaches.
Yeah.
And the Lake Forest parents have been good. Youth, it might be a little different because a lot of times, and it's not their fault, they don't know anything about the sport.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Right.
they're just dropping in,
Yeah.
and they have great intentions, but there's just a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Whether it's playing time, what's going on. And I think you really do have to make yourself more available.
Yeah.
It's just, in the one word is patience, which is harder for a young coach. Right, we talk about persistence, being there if you can, year after year after year, applying your craft and the same goals. But it's just persistence. There are challenging times.
Yeah.
Especially the youth.
Definitely.
There's some crazy games, right? And it doesn't go according to plan, and you hear from parents.
Yeah.
But just stick to plan, stick to the goals, and it's intestinal fortitude.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's easy to say, tougher to execute, as you know.
So I would assume there's probably some 7th and 8th grade players or parents that might watch this that have dreams of playing for you on the varsity team. Maybe some words of wisdom or recommendations for those kids, and things that that you look for in your players. When you're doing evaluations at maybe tryouts, it's hey, these are the guys, these are my type of players. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think there's two ways to approach it. One is positional, and the other one is I call it the core four of being a Lake Forest high school varsity scout. Right, and that when I came in, took over the program 2 years ago, what do we stand for? How should we guide ourselves? And these are the 4 pillars of success, which are lacrosse intelligence, being smarter, team chemistry, right, physical conditioning, but the most important is mental strength or mental durability. Right, these are 16, 17, 18-year-olds, and they get things can go wrong.
Yeah.
Right, individually on the field, but also collectively as a team, whether you lose or you have a tough quarter or whatever, how do you bounce back? But if as a team and individually you can put those core 4 together over time, we're in a really good position as a scout to make the team and be a player on the team. Now positionally, quickly, and I talk to our youth a lot, and also it's really the same as a varsity Lake Forest scout. With goalies, can you transition pass up and be a goldfish, right? Next goal, you're a goalie, you're a good goalie, you know about being a goldfish.
Absolutely.
Forget about it, next one up. So mental, right? It's 110% mental. Attack, you gotta be the toughest guy out there, right? Take that extra step to glory.
Yeah.
You gotta be tough.
Mm-hmm.
Some players and parents are surprised about that, but I was an attackman through college. You gotta get, you got some punishment.
Yes.
And also, be able to dodge,
Yeah.
effectively. And then midfield, just dodge with gusto.
Mm-hmm.
Strong, hard, and dodges and just draw a slide.
Yeah.
And off ball and be a good shooter. And then close D, match feet, just play with, your feet. Right?
Yeah.
So, and then you have the rope unit, face off, which you talk about. And lastly, what I always look for and what is the unseen hidden gem of what we have at the high school level is our rope unit. We take a lot of pride in our ropers.
Yeah.
And I tell them, whether the youth, 7th and 8th graders, if you're a great athlete, that is a spot that could be could be a good opportunity for you.
Definitely.
So that's the core four,
Love
what
it.
we look for position by position.
That's awesome. How so talk to me a little bit about, the season now. Obviously, as you alluded to, the goal again, state championship, all right?
Right.
How do you feel like things are going this year, and kind of your guys' outlook as you guys get ready for the postseason?
Yeah, it's early. I think we're 6 games in. Years we want to play the full max of regularly scheduled games, which is 20. So we've got a full 20, and then if you make it to the state championship, it's another 6 games, so full 26. So we're 6 in. This year is different. We really revamped the schedule to play the toughest competition that we can.
Yeah.
So we have a tougher road competition-wise. Why do we do that? We want to play the best because, as you well know, once you hit that playoff run into the brackets and hopefully the Final Four, you want to be in that position to play your best lacrosse. And I find that if you play early on, the best lacrosse, the better you should be. So with that, we just last weekend we went out to play 2 top teams in Michigan.
Yeah.
And that was great, to find ourselves, chemistry, bonding,
Yeah.
get better intelligence, right?
Yeah.
Conditioning. So that was a great step forward for us. And now we've got, another, 14 games?
Yeah.
Got a game tomorrow, St. Ignatius, great.
Yeah.
We haven't played them in a while, so I feel good. It's just early, and, again, that's the goal, but you have to reverse engineer it.
Yeah.
Things to fix, things to learn.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And then a lot of tape to watch.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Well, Coach, honestly, I appreciate you spending the time and getting an opportunity for. What I notice is a lot of varsity coaches seem to be hard for people to reach out to and communicate with. Obviously, appreciate you spending the time to sit down and talk. Opening up your, talking about your coaching philosophy and what you look for in young players, and obviously, congrats on last season and good luck the rest of the season.
I appreciate it. Thank you for what you do in IBLA, especially for the youth, and go Scouts.